If you're in the process of looking for a home or are thinking about buying a home this year, beware, okay? The housing market is a war zone. My husband and I narrowly missed this battle when we purchased our first home in summer 2020, but it was still extremely stressful. So now we're in 2021 and people are selling their firstborns just to get into a house sight unseen. So if you're ready to join the battle, there are a few things that can cause you to lose out if you aren't careful. I'd hate for you to start this journey and not have all of your ducks in a row, so that you actually have a chance to close with as little stress as possible. So what are the 6 things that will prevent you from closing on a house in 2021, and how can you prevent those things from happening? So before I get into the list, I do want to say that the majority of the things that I'm going to discuss are things that will cause a delay in the home buying process. And usually delays are just an annoying part of buying a house. But in this day and age, delays can leave the battlefield open for other people to come in and swoop up your potential dream home. And the way that it used to work is typically when you put down an offer on a home and it's accepted, you're pretty much in there as long as everything goes well with the inspections and things like that. But I know people personally who have put down an offer, the offer was accepted, they got to the paperwork process and the inspection, only for the seller to reject that contract in order to sign another one because they were giving them a higher offer. Okay, this is unheard of. Usually you can't just break a contract when you get the offer, when you accept an offer on a home, but nowadays people are doing all kind of crazy stuff. So we cannot afford in this day and age to have any delays in the home buying process. So I'm gonna go over all the reasons why that this could happen and how to prevent them from happening. Keep watching for the tea. Okay, so the first thing that can go wrong is that there's an error in your documents. It could be as simple as an error in your name or missing bank statements, but either way, this can cause delays. It's super important to review your documents thoroughly, and whatever they ask for, make sure that you give them exactly what they're asking for. And if you're confused, ask them, whether it be, the realtor or the loan representative, ask them to be specific with what they need so that you can give them the right information one time, so that you're not going back and forth, because that can happen, okay? So just make sure you ask questions to make sure you get the right documents. So the second thing that can go wrong is mortgage delays or last minute requests. So when you set a closing date and communicate that with your lender, you would probably assume that they'll let you know if there's any problems with meeting the deadline. But if that is not the case in 2021, so understand that in a hot real estate buying market, lenders will be inundated with all kinds of work. We had to deal with this in 2020, so definitely expect your lender to have last minute requests when it comes to your documentations or deposit checks or bank issues. So just make sure early on that you check with everyone. Find out exactly what documents the lender needs to complete your file and write you the loan. Between bank statements, tax returns, and other documents, there are ample opportunities for items to go missing or forgotten about until the very end. I know that a part of this is you understanding all that the lender is going to ask you to have. And if you've never purchased a house before, you probably won't know this, but I suggest you study up on all that a lender needs from a home buyer beforehand. That way you're ahead of the game. The third problem you'll encounter is cash flow issues. So let me give you a scenario. You go to the bank one day before closing and arrange for your bank to have your down payment transferred directly to the closing agent. And typically you're good to go, unless the transfer falls through due to some bug in the bank system and the money either doesn't get there on time, or what comes through is less than the amount you need. All you have to do to prevent this from happening is to bring the down payment with you. And that's exactly what we did. So just make sure that you confirm the right amount based off of your contract. So the next thing that can go wrong is that your title isn't clear. Maybe the title company finds out that the seller didn't pay the contractor for the backyard fence, or hasn't paid property taxes for 5 years, and there's a lien on the property. Or maybe the home is the subject of a lawsuit between bickering relatives. And interesting as that may be, the problem is that you, the buyer, will have a problem. You need to insist on a clear, problem-free title before closing, okay? And your lender will insist on that too. So typically shortly after escrow is opened, the title company completes a preliminary title report. And it often goes directly to your lender, but you can often get a copy of it from either the title company, or you can ask your lender to make you a copy of it. And just make sure that you read this title report thoroughly for any of those potential problems that you may encounter in the future. So the fifth problem that you can encounter is that there is a problem with your walkthrough. And this is something that happened to us, and it's so bizarre that I'm gonna make a separate video just talking about it because it was crazy. But basically, it's like literally closing day and you're doing your final walkthrough and the seller hasn't moved out yet. Yeah. The house is filthy, it stinks, and the seller's things are still inside the house. So how do you prevent having a squatter in your new home? Or maybe the seller accidentally punches a hole in the wall or something happens after the initial inspection, okay? Something can happen at the very last minute, right? It's possible. So what you do is you jump on it now. Your agent should be working with the seller's agent to solve the problems. First, figure out what's acceptable, how much it's gonna cost, and how much of that to make the seller pay. So we had the option to make the seller pay a fee for each extra day that she was inside of our house, but that did not happen. And I'll explain in my later video about this why that did not happen. It's a long story. But the point is, do not wait until closing to bring up any issues. Get them resolved beforehand. And I mean, from what I went through, I would suggest maybe doing the walkthrough more than one day before closing, or maybe, because we did the walkthrough on closing day, okay? And it's, I mean, typically that is a good rule of thumb, because they'll tell you, like, you know, if you read up on articles about this on Google, it'll say things have happened, crazy things have happened to people when they first buy their house. Like on closing day, the house that they bought and they signed off on and everything, they, you know, signed up on all the documents and they did not do their final walkthrough. Well, it ended up like setting on fire. It was literally, there was literally a fire on the closing day, but they were trusting that the house was going to be in good standing, but they did not do their final walkthrough on the day of closing and the house ended up setting on fire somehow. Things like this can happen. So you just want to make sure that you do that last minute walkthrough. But I would suggest too, you know, if you can, if you know, the seller has actually moved out of the house within a good amount of time, you can do a walkthrough maybe a few days before closing, just in case there are any issues you need to be squared away at the last minute. It's not, you know, you're not like pressed to get that happened in one day, like the day of closing, okay? So don't do what we did. Well, actually do what we did, but also be a lot more thorough with making sure that everything is squared away. Maybe, you know, at least like 3 days before closing. It's just my suggestion. Okay, so now for the final problem that is very 2021. You will most likely have to overpay for a home. And if you don't, you will probably encounter another eager buyer who will outbid you in the offer stage, or even after the offer stage, as I mentioned before, that happened to my friend. And some of the hottest housing markets around the US, more than half of all homes sold go for more than the list price. For example, in April of 2021, Austin, Denver, and Sacramento all had at least 70% of their homes selling above the listing price. So if you're selling right now, you're in a pretty sweet spot. If only it was that easy to buy a home though. Ultimately, you know, whether or not a person is overpaying for a house is usually the case of semantics, you know. It's what you determine is overpriced. And the housing market is highly competitive right now. So home buyers do have to be aggressive with their offers if they hope to edge out the competition. In many cases, this typically means offering well above the seller's asking price. And that's the reality of the current real estate market. Whether you agree with it or not, I mean, there's really nothing you can do. Like, it's just inevitable right now in this day and age. So there you have it. Hopefully the market can recover from this, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. And if you are in the process of buying a home, or you already have a home and you want to learn more about how to pay that mortgage off early, I have a video right here that you can watch. So if you got some value from this video, go ahead and throw me a like. And if you want more content like this about personal finance, you know, paying off debt, subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I drop my newest video. Help your girl out. And until next time, friends, bye.